Okay, so let's talk about experiments, which is another method on how one collects data and uses the data to make some sort of a conclusion. So it's nice to know how one properly should be doing an experiment. So if you'll bear with me, I got this illustration, this PowerPoint through another training, and I love teaching experiments this way. Um, okay, so let's start with a couple definitions. An observational study is one where the outcome occurs without imposing any sort of treatment. In other words, you just sit there and you watch. You do nothing to change anything. You just look at what happens and record. An experiment is when you actively try to make a difference. You actually try to change something and see if that change mattered at the end result. Okay, I believe the technical term is actively impose some treatment in order to observe the response. Um, okay, so I'm going to go through this nice little thought experiment in the hope to illustrate the various vocab throughout the lesson, so please bear with me, be patient here. Let's say I've got this new rabbit food that I just think is the best, and I think every rabbit should have it. I'm going to tell you right now it makes fur soft and shiny, it increases energy, and it gives 100% of vitamins and oils and all the fun stuff. Can I get away with that? Can I just make these claims? And the answer is no. Now, what must I do to make to in order to say these things? Well, that's a laundry list of things that I got to do before I can jump through that hoop. But an experiment would be sort of the shortest way to describe that. Uh, Now, if I'm going to make those claims about the rabbit being shiny and such and healthy, who or what should I test this on? That should be the rabbits, is what I'm going to try to change or try to see if I can alter. And then what should I physically test? Well, again, there's a couple ideas that could come to mind. I'm going to test the type of food. So I'm going to give them the food and see what happens. That brings us to experimental unit. The experimental unit is the single individual person, animal, or thing to which a different treatment is assigned. What am I conducting the experiment on? That is the experimental unit. A factor is the explanatory variable, meaning what explains this change. That thing that I did that explains the change we call the factor. And a level is a specific value for a given factor. So maybe I'm doing a couple of different things. Maybe I'm testing different types of foods or that sort of thing, and those would be different levels. Response variable. Response variable is what am I actually measuring in this? Treatment is a condition applied to an experimental unit. So what am I, in giving the rabbit food, what am I giving? That's the treatment. Okay, so let's kind of go through some questions and make sure we get the big picture here. If I plan on testing the new rabbit food, what exactly are the experimental units? That would be the rabbits. What are the factors? Would be the types of food. And then what am I physically going to measure? Well, this is a little fuzzy for us right now, but I'm going to measure how well they grow. Maybe their weight, maybe their strength, maybe their body mass, their BMI, that sort of thing. Um, okay, so now that I understand that, let's go back to my little rabbit here. I'm going to use my rabbit and I'm going to give him the food and I'm going to see if it made a difference, and in fact it did. So therefore I can now sell my product and claim that it's going to change the world of rabbits. And the answer is, can I get away with that? Nope. I need to have a couple other things in my experiment. So I need to have a control group. Control group gives me something to compare the factor against. In other words, A placebo would be a good word that we use here. If I'm claiming the rabbit food is going to make a difference, I need to have something difference for what? I need to have something to compare it to. And that comparison we call a control group. Now, the control group can be a placebo. A placebo is a sort of a dummy treatment that really, like you give someone, instead of aspirin, you give them a sugar pill and see if it makes them feel better. Or it could be an old or current item that you're comparing it against. So not all experiments are going to have placebos in them, but that is an option. Okay, so let's add that detail to this little rabbit experiment. I'm going to use my rabbit. He's going to get hippity hop, and then the other rabbit's going to get the old food. And lo and behold, I notice my rabbit's bigger, so therefore I can make this claim, right? Well, nope, not yet. Okay, so I listened to you, and it seems I've got to do this to multiple rabbits. So I'm gonna grab 10 of them, and the first 5 that I catch, I'm gonna give the new food to, and the other 5 are gonna get the old food. And I notice that the hippity hop still makes a difference. Now, can I claim it? And the answer is still no. There's still more details I need to add to my experiment. Okay, so I'm going to number the rabbits from 1 to 10. I'm going to place the numbers in a hat. I'm going to draw 5 numbers and randomly pick which 5 get the hippity hop and which ones get the old food. So as I do that, now have I satisfied all the necessary requirements for a good experiment, because I'm going to measure the rabbits and the food and make sure that it's all in the up and up. And the answer is nope. There's still another detail. I need to add something called blinding. Blinding is when the units do not know which treatment they're getting. So the rabbits aren't really aware. Now, they're rabbits, I understand that, but the rabbits aren't aware of which food they're getting. If we add into it double blind, it means the evaluator, the person doing the measuring, doesn't really know. Now, I want to clarify this because I get this question all the time about this. When it says double blind, that doesn't mean no one knows. There's a list, and on the list it says which rabbit gets which food. There's just somebody who gets handed a rabbit and is told to measure the rabbit and decide whether or not there's an improvement. That someone doesn't have any idea what the rabbit they're looking at has eaten and doesn't know which food they're gotten. It's double blind just means the evaluator is not in on who got what, but there is someone that's got a master list of everything somewhere. Okay, so I jumped through all those hoops, and I still find that the new rabbit food makes the fur soft and shiny. So now I can sell it to all rabbits. And the answer is no, not really. Still can't make that particular claim that it works for all rabbits. And that's the word all is the issue. Okay, so in general here, as we've talked, hopefully you've gotten this idea that a good experiment needs to have a couple of principles. It needs to have something called controls. And those are things put in place to minimize the effects of extraneous variables on the response. Things, in other words, that try to get that we're only measuring one particular thing. Replication is another requirement. Replication means that we can do the experiment over and over again and we should see the same results each time we do it. And then randomization is the last thing, and that's that you've randomly assigned subjects that you don't get to pick who gets what. You've taken yourself out of the mix, and it's just due to random chance to have any sort of control. So any good experiment is going to have these 3 particular topics in it. Okay. Now, the only way to show that something is cause and effect, that something causes something else, is a well-designed, well-controlled experiment. If that doesn't happen, we can't say cause and effect have occurred. So we'll kind of go through a couple of examples here. Make sure we got the terminology down is kind of what we're trying to get mastered here. A farm product manufacturer wants to determine if the yield of crop is different when the soil is treated with 3 different types of fertilizers. 15 similar plots of land are planted with the same type of seed but are fertilized differently. At the end of the growing season, the mean yield from the sample plots is compared. Okay, so what are we actually, what are the experimental units here? That would be the plots of land. That's what we're giving the thing to see if it made a difference. What are the factors? There are just types of fertilizer. Just we're measuring with 3 different types. I'm sorry, levels would be 3. Fertilizer A, B, and C. When all gets said and done, what are we, the response variable, what are we measuring? And that would be the yield of the crop. You know, how many ears of corn did we get? And then how many treatments were there total? That would just be the 3. So when I gather up the data, I would have it in 3 different categories, just based on the fertilizer, because that was the only thing that we changed about this. Now, let's look at a different type that'll have some different parameters to it. We want to test cake pans and see which one has a tendency to bake evenly. So we're going to test aluminum, glass, and plastic, don't ask, in both gas and electric ovens. Alright, so what are our experimental units? What are we actually experimenting on? That's the cake batter. What are the factors? Well, there's 2. There's the type of pan and the type of oven. So we're looking at 2 different things in this experiment. The levels, well, in the type of pan there are 3 levels, aluminum, glass, and plastic, and the oven has electric and gas, so there's 2 levels there. Response variable, I mean, what are we actually measuring? And so we're going to measure how evenly the cake bakes. And so total, when I collect up the data, this is the number of treatments, how many different categories would I have? If I've got 3 types of pans and 2 types of ovens, that would be 6. Okay, so if you're thinking, well, where'd 6 come from? Well, it's really 3 times 2, but let me kind of clarify here. There's electric and aluminum, electric glass, electric plastic. There's 3 of them. And there's gas aluminum, gas glass, and gas plastic. There's the other 3. So when I look at the data, I'll have 6 different things that I'm comparing to see which one had the better response as far as producing the best kind of cake. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video here so